Hey weirdos! Today I think is the last book haul that I will be doing in a while apart from textbooks. I'm not sure whether I will have done my textbook haul by the time you see this video or not. It just depends on what my professors say I need to buy, because I'm not looking to spend almost $600 without getting a confirmation from my professors whether we really need these books. The books that I want to show you today in this haul are going to be from New York. If you couldn't tell that by the title of this video, I was in New York for about 2 days over the summer while I was in DC, and the reason I didn't show you these in any of my DC hauls was because I thought that I should save them for a different video later, because I technically didn't get them in DC and there's only 6 of them. There's a lot fewer than at my DC hauls, and I just got so many books in DC that I just wanted to save these for a later date, and today's just when I got to them. Let's get going. The first book I want to show you from my N.Y.C book haul is not really a traditional book. I like to call it a book light, and that is the Cher Show, a new musical, the Souvenir Program. I always like to get the Souvenir Program whenever I go to see a show, not only because it supports the really creative people who've worked on the project, but also is a way for me to remember beautiful things that I may or may not see again, like just that it's beautiful. I was really fortunate to be able to go see this show when I was in New York. I went with some of my friends because we were celebrating, me and another one of my friends' mutual birthday. We had so much fun. He originally wasn't going to see this show, but then I convinced him to go, and we had so much fun watching it. I'm going to be honest, I am not the biggest fan of musicals that are more biopics, especially when they talk about specific artists and they use the artist's work in the show. Sometimes the music doesn't really fit and it just feels really jury-rigged. Maybe it's because I like to see more fantastical things or just see different stories, and that's what the Cher Show is. It's a perfectly valid genre of musical, it's just not my favorite. And everyone had been telling me that this was a really, really good musical, and it was still a good musical. I just don't think it was as fabulous as everyone said it was. I still liked it. The costumes were beautiful. The acting was amazing. I love the concept of having 3 Chers. I really liked that. I think that really saved it for me, because I think if we just had one actress playing Cher the entire time, I would have been like, meh. But I thought it was really good. Actually, while over the summer, kind of a running joke with my friends was that, oh, I can't do blank because I have a learning disability, right? And so when my friend heard where she said, I can't do this because of my learning disability, my friend was just like, of course EmmaAbe picked this musical because of the disability thing, which, to be fair, I did not know Cher had this, but it was still a really cool thing to learn. This Souvenir Program is very different than the other Souvenir Programs. The other Souvenir Programs I've gotten were longer and they had more in-depth information. This just has little blurbs that you can read about how the book or the script was written, how the lighting design, how the costumes were made, and all of that fun stuff. So it's a little tiny book, but yeah, still something that I wanted to share with you. The next book I want to talk to you about is From Here to Eternity, Traveling the World to Find the Good Death, by Caitlin Doughty. So Caitlin Doughty is a active mortician. She works as a mortician. She has her own mortuary. I think that's what it's called. She also has a YouTube channel called Ask a Mortician, and that's how I first heard of her. I started watching her videos because I was just curious by some of the things, but I also found that her videos helped me a lot with dealing with some of the personal issues that I've been going with recently and dealing with my own mortality. So I decided to go on a quest to pick up her books. She only has, I think, 3 books out right now, and then another one is coming, and I pre-ordered her 4th one, and I do not have the other 2. but I have this one. I'm just very happy to support her as a YouTube creator as she strives to find what she calls the good death, but also how to make the funeral business more sustainable and economical. So that's one thing I did not know. I did not know how unsustainable and how terrible things like embalming are to the environment. And it's made me think about a lot of what I want to do and want to have happen to my body when I die, which you guys might be thinking, EmmaAbe, you're really young to be thinking about this. But I've had experiences in the past where it doesn't freaking matter how young you are. Anything can happen, and I have certain things that I want done, and I want that to be respected. I picked this up from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Crazy great that it was there, but I saw it and I was like, I have to have this because you know that I like to support museums too. This does have an audiobook. I encourage you to go check out her channel. I will leave it linked in the description below. Leonard, My 50-Year Friendship with a Remarkable Man by William Shatner with David Fisher. This is a book about, you guessed it, Leonard Nimoy, who played Spock in the original series of Star Trek. Why are we surprised that I have this book? I've watched a documentary about his life. I think he's a really, really remarkable man and actor. I'm intrigued to see what William Shatner has to say about his friend Leonard, who has unfortunately passed away. This does have an audiobook. I also got this from Book Off in New York. I saw this, I was excited, so I decided to buy it. And actually it was really funny. It was a couple weeks later when I went to the National Air and Space Museum that's on the mall. I saw this book and I laughed a little bit to myself. I was like, I already have this book. I bought this when I went to New York. I think Spock is a really iconic character. He is my favorite character in the entire Star Trek universe. And he's definitely my favorite character in the original series, although I have some other favorites like Sulu and Uhura. I'm happy to have this book about Leonard, and to some extent William Shatner and their relationship. The next book I'm going to talk about is 1,000 Miles to Freedom, My Escape from North Korea by Yoon-Sun Kim with Sebastian Fallet, translated by David Tian. I can't pronounce things, guys, I'm really sorry. I got this from Book Off USA, which is a used bookstore in downtown New York. I don't know a lot about North Korea and what the process is like to escape and how one does that. As it turns out, North Korean and South Korean are starting to become really, really different, that they can almost be considered their own languages, which has made it really, really hard for North Koreans who escape and move to South Korea. So they have problems where they can't understand other Koreans and they can't read. This does have an audiobook, which I think is great. I love audiobooks. All I can say really about this book is that I'm really interested to read it. And one thing you will notice about most of the books that I picked up is that they're all about the same size, because I was worried about space. I knew it really wouldn't be a problem, but we were taking a bus back to DC and I didn't want to buy too many books, so I tried to restrain myself. Didn't work out, but I tried. The next book I have is Sitting Bull, The Life and Times of an American Patriot by Robert M. Uttley. If you remember back to one of my first hauls where I got the Crazy Horse, I actually have it. When I got this book, I mistakenly said that Crazy Horse was the person killed at the Battle of Wounded Knee. That's incorrect. It was actually Sitting Bull, and he is what sparked arguably one of the most tragic events in American history, aka the Wounded Knee Massacre. I would like to know more about Sitting Bull and his life and what brought him to be there and why his death affected the Native Americans that were with him at the time to such an extent. This doesn't have an audiobook that I could find on Audible. The author of this book has also written other works about Native Americans, which, depending on how I like this book, will determine whether or not I pick up his other books, but he is a historian, which I greatly appreciate. I really love historical books written by historians, and if they're in a more narrative style. I'm happy that I have this book to add to my Native American collection. I have really upped my game with that collection. I was really upset at myself for a really long time on how lackluster it is. Now I can continue growing it, but also divert more focus to other areas that I need to increase, like specifically about modern Latin America, so South and Central America, focusing mainly on things post First Contact, Caitlin Doughty stuff. The last book that we are going to be talking about in this book haul is Gender, Your Guide, a gender-friendly primer on what to know, what to say, and what to do in the new gender culture by Dr. Lee Ertron. And I saw this again at Off Book USA in New York. I think that this looked really interesting. Gender is a very, very complicated topic. I know a little bit about it. I also want to know more so that I can be more supportive to my friends who are going through a transition from something they were assigned at birth to something else on the gender spectrum. And I also want to be able to educate people better. So for instance, my mom will ask me questions all the time about gender, and I just do not feel equipped to answer those questions. So I plan on reading this and then maybe loaning it to her so that she can better educate herself, because her questions come from a place of wanting to know more and confusion and ultimately wanting to be loving and accepting, but who still has questions, which in my opinion is very fair. Also, I am taking a human sexuality class this year, which I'm also very excited about. It should be really interesting and really fun. I can't wait to call home and talk to my mom all about vibrators, because we're gonna talk about vibrators and I'm so excited. I wanted to better educate myself so that I can develop on my road to understanding my own gender, because I think that is something that every individual should go through. I hope this book helps. The author is a PhD in gender studies, so I think that will help me a lot, and I hope it does, because there's always room to learn and grow, and I hope this book helps me on my gender journey. This doesn't have an audiobook. Love it if it would, but doesn't always happen. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm so glad you came and stuck around. I'm not really sure when you're going to be seeing this, so I don't know what has been released, what will be released. Hopefully this will come out sometime in September. I don't know, I'm kind of filming a bunch of videos together and then we'll be releasing them throughout the semester. I don't want to get too overwhelmed, because school's a lot and I take 18 credit hours because I'm crazy. But we all know this and it's fine. Like, subscribe, comment something you thought was interesting about the books, if there's a specific book you want me to read first, all of that good fun stuff, and I will see you next week.